from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hey, Rich off tonight. I'm Giordano, night 2, sitting in for Rich, and it's a big night. I want to get to a big interview straight away. For some time, I've been trying to get an interview with Byron Donalds, who you often see in cable news, the congressman from Florida, and definitely in the inner circle to be a VP choice. He's been in New York, standing with Trump. I had a chance to talk with him earlier today about what's going on in that courtroom, and also what is it like to be an African-American conservative constantly being attacked by MSNBC and somewhat by CNN, and he seems to go on both and handle it. Here's my interview with Congressman Byron Donalds. Hey, Congressman, welcome to Philadelphia. It's a difficult situation we're in here, but I'm very grateful we got you. You're a big favorite of our listeners, and I know you've been around the trial, various events in New York. What are your impressions? What are the things that break out of you at this point in time?
Well, I mean, look, a couple things. First, the trial is a joke. I mean, it's not even it's a trial, which is what's truly disgusting and frankly un-American, but there's still no underlying crime. Mm-hmm. Even in the closing arguments, they couldn't identify an underlying crime. Then you got the judge telling the jury, well, you can just piecemeal the law however you want to. You guys can pick and choose amongst yourselves which law he violated. But if you all come back and say he violated the law, then he's guilty. Like, this is nuts. Like, this is not even, man, forget Republican, Democrat, forget the fact that Joe Biden sucks. We all know that. I mean, we are talking about a complete unraveling of human liberty in America simply because the Democrats have lost their mind. So that's really what's on top of my mind. Like, it is that terrible for our country.
I agree. Now, have you been able to observe the jury? Today, I made note, several commentators I trust said a lot of jurors were taking careful notes. I take that as a good sign. There are going to be a few people on the jury that see it the way that you and I do. If there are two or more, then this is going to backfire. What are you sensing?
I mean, when I was there, what I sensed is that I think the prosecution lost one or two, maybe three of the jurors, where even when they were cross-examining Michael Cohen, that, you could see their faces like cringe, twist, like really like, are they serious? Like, did he really say that? That kind of body language. So look, I think it's going to be a hung jury. That's what I think, because
I do
there's
too.
just no case here. It's insane.
Exactly.
But that being said, the fact we're going through this is a very difficult thing to watch.
Exactly. Now, I follow you carefully, and, you have the added burden of the media coming after you on the issue of a conservative congressman and race. You made comments about Joy Reid recently. President Biden was in town today. I think Girard College is a special place. I've been there many times. These are kids in a boarding school, poor, mostly black children. And they are getting a good shot. This is a good school. He opened up today by telling them that MAGA Republicans, conservatives, want to get rid of black history, want to just excise it, banning books, and we're not going to stand for that. Give me your thoughts, particularly the type of crossfire that you get.
I mean, I get it from the press sometimes. I get it from other people. But honestly, most of these people they're pretty lame. Like, they're not going to do anything. Like, they just talk about you. But as long as you have the courage and the ability to stand your own 2 feet, and you have actual examples and you have reasons and logic for why you believe what you believe versus just political talking points and foolishness, then that gives you everything. That gives you everything you need to stand firm. But the press, they come at me with the silliest things. Like the New York Times came at me the other day with ridiculous arguments. And the reason why they have to do this is because if the American people actually sit and listen to logical common sense, they will realize that the Democrats have lost it, and that the media is in the pocket, and they won't want it. They will reject it wholesale. And look, Let's call it what it is. The media is in the pockets of the Democrats. That's just what it is. They want the same thing that the Democrats want. They're in their pocket. And so they'll destroy anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, white, black, Hispanic. You're on the chopping block if you oppose their agenda.
Congressman, to that point, for years, ever since I've been doing talk radio, which is decades in Philadelphia, we've said Democrats, particularly where I am in Philadelphia, you know the layout here, have taken voters of color for granted. Up and down the line, we see this constant. What is it about Trump? Because whether the polling is slightly off or not, there's no doubt that he has broken through. The South Bronx was just one example. What is it that's breaking through at this point that other Republicans have not been able to do?
The fact that he talks direct. He doesn't mince words. He doesn't play games. Everything isn't perfectly crafted. I tell some of my colleagues sometimes, I'm like, don't write your speeches. You already know what you want to say. Just go say it. You are elected for a reason. You don't need a staffer or a consultant to craft everything for you perfectly, so that way you don't fall in the crosshairs of ABC News or CNN. No, the heck with that. And that's not where people are. And I think it's just bigger than just black voters. I would tell you that's where most people are right now. They want you to be direct. They don't want you to pull punches. That's what Donald Trump does. And so I think that now that you're seeing with black voters, Hispanic voters starting to come his way is because he just has a no-nonsense approach. He's not going to run away from people who criticize him. As a matter of fact, he engages them and is trying to find ways to beat them at every turn. People respect that. You couple that with the fact that Joe Biden's the master of disaster. Like everything has gone wrong. Like I heard in Philadelphia today, they could barely fill a gym. I mean, that's nuts for a sitting president to barely fill a gymnasium.
Well, and these were mostly children.
President.
Yeah, there's like 200 or 300 kids that were in there that are brought in through the school because it's a boarding school. So they're kind of a captive audience. You're right. He just can't draw. That's a sign. A little bit, if you would, because it's the first opportunity I had to talk with you. And as I said, listeners really admire the stuff that you're doing. A little bit of your background before you came to Congress, how you got here. What are some big issues for Congressman Donalds?
I'm a finance guy. I was in banking, insurance, financial services before I got into politics. So for me, like I became a conservative really because of economics, because it was my career. And then when I started paying attention to politics, my economic viewpoints kind of really settled in to kind of frame the rest of my politics. So I'm a simple guy. You know, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. That's kind of my overarching worldview. And then everything else comes after that. So, you know, for me, what I want to see, cutting regulations at the federal level. So, you know, mom and pops, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses, they can go thrive. You know, one of the big things that's happened in our country from when Obama was president was they did this Dodd-Frank regulation to save the country from the banks, from the big banks. Well, the only thing that's happened is the big banks have gotten massively bigger. Small banks are virtually gone in the United States. So how does that help the little guy? I mean, the Democrats always say they want to help the little guy. Well, their own banking regulatory policy has destroyed community banking in the United States. That doesn't help mom and pop businesses. So I want everybody to be successful. I want everybody to thrive. And so I don't get into dogmas. Big government's not good for people. Lower taxes is what's good for people. Less regulation is what's good for people. Securing a border is a good thing. People secure their house, but we don't secure our country. That makes no sense. That's idiotic. You know, and so that's really what drives me. I just want an America that works. And if it works and we're using common sense, we're using logic, we're using conservative principles, the country's going to be better off and its people are going to be better off.
Well, I can tell why you don't need talking points now that I know the background a little bit. Congressman often talked on the VIP list, particularly with our listeners. What are your thoughts about that, particularly your style and what we've just talked about? That would play well with President Trump as a VP candidate.
Well, you know, I really don't get into it too much because it's really the president's decision. So I'll tell you what I think about, you know, what I think what'll help the campaign. You got to have somebody who can go out there and take the message. You know, I think that's critical. I think you got to have somebody who's going to be tough with the media because, you know, they're going to be going at that person left and right. Obviously, that person's got to be able to hit the ground running, help the campaign, raise money, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you know, we win the White House, we win the House, we win the Senate. You have all three. I think the vice president's got to be very helpful in getting the agenda done. Being on Capitol Hill a couple of years, I'll tell you, a lot of times where things don't happen on Capitol Hill is frankly because the leadership gets weak-kneed, or you get a couple of members who say, oh, well, we can't vote for that, or we can't do that, it'll hurt us in our district. And that's how some of these things really don't get across the line. So you got to have you got to kind of have an intermediary between the White House and Congress to help get that stuff done and get it through Congress and get it to the president's desk. Because at the end of the day, if we're, as a Republican, if the American people give us all three give us the two key branches of government, give us the Congress and the White House, you got to do something with it. Like, you can't screw around and then be like, oh, well, it didn't work out because, the New York Times isn't going to like us. Screw those guys.
Exactly.
Like,
and Congressman, is it your sense President Trump had a lot of drive, the wall and everything else in the first term? But let's face it, you can tell someone what it's like in Congress. You were told that before you went in, but you see what the roadblocks are. And in a second term, you know that you have to really drill down on these things if you're going to accomplish it, even over 4 years.
Yeah, no, you really, really do. And you got to have a strategic vision for it, just on the way Capitol Hill works. So you have to have the vision. Donald Trump has that. You got to have the tactical ability to move all that stuff through and get it done. And a lot of times what ends up in these bills are discussions between chairman and leadership and a handful of members. And you got to make sure that you got key parties on Capitol Hill involved in those discussions of how you're going to craft this stuff so that when it gets to the floor, it gets voted up and it gets out of that chamber. Last thing you want is for, the speaker and one chairman to decide everything that was going to be in the bill, then other members get to see it. They're like, what the heck is this? That sucks. We don't want that in there. Or worse yet, for the White House to see it and then be like, hey, why did y'all put that in there? That's stupid. That's not what we wanted to do. You got to be working as a team, House, Senate, White House. You got to be functioning, everybody on the same page, and then working hard to get it done.
Congressman, thank you. Thanks for being generous with your time. Always welcome in Philadelphia. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, man. Anytime.
All right, there's Congressman Byron Donalds with me earlier today in my station in Philadelphia. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdes. I'd love to get your response. That was great stuff, and he is, I believe, among the three finalists or so to be the VP choice. After that interview today, I came away thinking he'd be a heck of a VP choice. Here's how you get in. 833, the number 4, Valdes. 833-482-5337. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight here on America at Night. You just heard Byron Donalds. Love to get your reaction. 833-482-5337. I think he'd be a heck of a VP choice. I don't know about the vetting and everything else. I just saw something a moment ago. The clock is ticking on the jury. I can't see them coming back with a decision tomorrow. I can possibly see it sometime by Friday, though. Potentially. The longer it goes on, it's clear that that is helpful to Trump. The shorter it is, the more it's an indicator they've come up with some kind of compromise and he's going to be convicted of something. Jonathan Turley, who is not a pro-Trump guy, you see him on Fox News all the time, just did an interview in which he said the jury requesting the jury instructions again today in several different ways is indicative as a defense attorney to him that there is conflict in the jury room. And if you're thinking that this is a persecution of Trump, et cetera, that's a good sign, indicating at least initially there are some people in there, or at least one, but more likely more than one, who are at least in the beginning stages taking the position they don't see the elements of the crime. And by the way, isn't this just another disgraceful thing? It has nothing to do with ideology. In what universe? I started to look up. I didn't get to it. Maybe tomorrow night when I'm filming it, I'll have it. How many states do not allow the jury to take the instructions in with them? What's the problem? A lot of places don't allow you to take notes, too, this is insane. This was complicated stuff of the elements of the case. In fact, we didn't learn until today what the charges could be around. And apparently, I say apparently because it's still not formal, it would be campaign finance violation, falsifying business records, or tax evasion. And if you choose any one of the three, the jurors don't have to agree on any of them. You could have a 4-4-4. What happened to 12 Angry Men, where it has to be unanimous? You know, the all-time great jury film. So this is ludicrous on the face of it if we can't say the jury has to agree on what it is they're willing to put someone in jail for. They can come to a unanimous verdict even though they're not agreeing on what the underlying crime is. That's just not rare. That's stupid. But Charlie makes a good point. And the broader point is, every state, they ought to look at this. Let the jury take the instructions in. The judge read them for about 40 minutes or so today. If you're really being earnest and you're really trying to look at the elements of the crime and see if they were met, particularly in a shadowy case like this, particularly with what the stakes are, don't you think you should be able to reference the jury instructions right there with you? It's ludicrous. I agree with him that I think this indicates, at least initially, there's conflict here about the elements of the case. Either they don't think they were met, or they're duking it out on even what the elements of the case are. So that starts to get toward reasonable doubt. If there's not a decision tomorrow and we go into Friday, and particularly if you get past Friday, you know, the end, people have the weekend, it's over, then this is indicative we're moving toward a hung jury. Then this judge is going to pounce. He will do whatever he can. We talked last night about, remember this, an Allen charge, if you hear that. Judge Merchan, I think, is going to retire after this. He's going to be a pundit on CNN or MSNBC, more likely. He'll be a hero if they get Trump with anything. And I know you can say, well, on appeal, though, Dom, it doesn't matter. This is not about stopping Trump for all time. It's about putting that label on him that he is a convicted felon, a convicted criminal, and President Biden will do that from the White House. That's what they want. It's not justice. It's just enough to get over the finish line, and the belief is that will move enough votes that it'll be helpful in the swing states. The polling is all over the place on this. There could be a resurgence of people finally paying attention to this and saying this is not the justice system that we want. But Byron Donalds, great stuff. Glad I was able to bring that to you. Thanks to the producer of my station and here with Rich's to get that done, because it's a rare talk radio interview with him. This guy is a coming superstar. I would be fine with him as the VP choice. All right, phone lines are 833-482-5337. Coming up, we're going to talk with an attorney who both has a background, the Civil Rights Division in the Trump Education Department, but also a trial background about the issues that are around the trial, and President Biden shamefully today telling little black kids that conservatives want to take away black history. That's next on America at Night.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, it's Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich. Momentarily, we should be talking with William Trachman, who served in the Trump administration in the Department of Education, Civil Rights Division. A lot to say about Biden today at Girard College. Here's President Biden. Here's the type of stuff I'm talking about. This is cut 14. Here's what he told, and you have to picture. First of all, New York Post has it right. He did not have a PAC rally. There were 150 kids there. It's a boarding school, and there were a scattering of people in a big gym, and a lot of them were media. The New York Post, photos from the New York Post, from New York Post reporter Steve Nelson, quote, photos from President Biden's Philly rally. The school gym is only about half full of supporters. A good amount of space is empty, and spacious press workplace takes up the rest. He's not packing them in any kind of rally. He can't draw that. Here's what he said to these children, though, about black history.
MAGA extremists ban books. Did you ever think if you're anybody over 30 years old, you'd go through a period where banning books in America? They're trying to erase black history. We're going to write black history because it's American history. It's American history. Together we make history, not erase it. To me, the values of diversity, equality, inclusion are literally, and that's not kidding, the core strengths of America. That's why I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history.
All right, so they're trying to erase black history. But you got to imagine, these are kindergarten, first grade, second graders there, and he's telling them they hate you. They want to erase black history. What do you do when a guy is this blatant about this? William Trachman, general counsel for the Mountain States Legal Foundation and formerly in the Trump administration, civil rights in the education department, joins us here on America at Night. William, good to have you on board. Given your background where you served in the civil rights division, your legal skills, what are your thoughts when Biden goes off in this Morehouse College today, worse, with young children?
He really can't help himself. Well, first of all, thank you for being on the program. But yeah, having come from the Trump administration and seeing the Biden administration really take action to undo all of the good work that we did on race neutrality and colorblindness, it's just his MO. He can't help it. He's obsessed with race and treating people differently based on race. So this is part and parcel of that. Just as one example, on the way out of the door in the Department of Education, we issued guidance saying racial segregation is a federal civil rights violation, and that was withdrawn a matter of days later, just out of the interest of equity, because the Biden administration wants to treat students and people of different races differently in order to achieve equivalent outcomes as opposed to equal opportunities. So this is just part and parcel of that, and it's more of the same.
Yeah, while you were there, too, the Trump, and you're talking about an even-handedness, neutrality, the transgender issue, and what we're seeing happen with women's sports. I come from a sports background, and my sisters, too. Some played college ball, and one of the greatest developments of the last 20, 25 years are women having the same things to be gained from sports as men used to. And yet, this insidious, constant movement of something you would think is sacred, and I'm sure when you were in the education department, Title IX is not something you mess around with, but they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to point out that Richard Nixon signed Title IX, and the regulations protecting women's athletics were signed under President Ford. These have been around a long time, and we've had equal opportunity in athletics for males and females for decades, and that started to be undermined in the Obama years. We came in the Trump years and restored equal opportunities in athletics to make sure that biological men couldn't compete with females. And now the president has not just undone that, but announced that he's going to force open women's athletics across the country. So it's not just in blue states anymore. It's throughout rural Mississippi. You're going to have to either let biological males into women's sports or lose your federal funds. And for many schools, that means closing up shop. So there's going to be federal monitors and federal oversight around the whole country if the Title IX rule that they've announced goes into effect. Of course, my firm, Mountain States Legal Foundation, has already brought a suit and already seeking an injunction to stop the rule from going into effect in August. So with any luck, that rule will never go into effect and we'll be safe.
So you're a guy who has sat in a political position in an administration plus a legal position. That's a good combination to see what's going on here in New York. And sometimes I think the mistake people make, we get into the legal battle, which is fine. But the goal here is only one thing. They would lose on appeal if Trump is convicted. It's to get that title on him, convicted felon. Just before you joined us, William, Jonathan Turley did an interview in which he said the jurors today asking the judge on a couple of occasions to reread the instructions indicates to him as a defense attorney there's conflict, at least initially in the jury room, about either the elements of the case or exactly what he's being charged with. How do you read what's happened so far? That's the only development that I see today.
Well, we're reading tea leaves here. We're just basically speculating about what we know and don't know. I mean, the one thing we know is that this jury didn't convict automatically. So they didn't just go back into the room, say, let's call it a day, let's move on with our lives and convict. So that's at least a starting point, that they are going to put themselves through some paces, and they're going to ask the judge a few questions. There are a couple of lawyers on the jury, so maybe they want to, pull rank and say, no, this is the way we have to do it. We have to go through the jury instructions and A, B, and C in order to get to where we're going. I do think that there are jurors on the jury who are conflicted and say, well, let's at least look back at the evidence. Maybe we can kick the can down the road on some of the harder discussions until we get the readout on what the witnesses said. In the broader scheme, juries have a habit of doing a lot of movement before the weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised, it says Wednesday, I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of movement by the end of Friday. Whether that's an actual verdict, we don't know, but you might see some early hung jury rumors by the end of Friday, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, I have all kinds of bets. I got a lot riding on this, so I'll bring you into it. I'm betting on a hung jury. The only unknown, I think there's at least one person who doesn't agree with this, doesn't see that they've met their case. That's going to be a lot, though. With that, they can get them to compromise on something. If there's more than one, if there's support in there, I don't think the lawyers are going to want to be holdouts, though. They're both corporate lawyers in Manhattan. And if it ever came out that they precluded Trump from being convicted, I think that might be a lot.
Yeah. So you're not just betting the line, you're betting the spread in terms of how many jurors vote one way or another. I mean, there will be a count release if, say...
I didn't know that. Okay.
6-6. Yeah, so typically there is a count released, and so I suppose the prosecution could try to claim victory if they got a majority of the jury, even though you need a unanimous verdict to either acquit or convict. That also goes a long way, by the way, in terms of whether they would recharge. If it's 11
well, let me ask you
that,
William. Is it your opinion that if they recharge, would that happen before the election, this would get going again?
Well, this whole thing is election interference, so they would have every motivation to recharge before the election happens. Now, you'd probably see quite a bit of hemming and hawing about whether we could go through a whole trial between now and November, especially with a Republican convention in July, a number of debates in June and the fall. And so really you are, it's easy to let the mask slip if you're saying, hey, we need to go through with another jury trial right around July 14th when Trump is going to be speaking in Milwaukee. So I do think that they might try to recharge. I have a feeling, just speculative, that they won't actually do anything. They won't get to a trial before November, even if they do recharge.
Yeah,
but they'll at least say, look, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me ask you, what are you looking for here now? Are you looking for the rumors that would come out of a hung jury? Is that the tell that you're looking for? Anything else we should be watching for?
I would caution people not to read too much in. It's very tempting, especially given the media environment that we're in, to read into everything. Some of this stuff is just stuff. It's what jurors do in order to, reassure themselves that they're being good jurors, that they're putting themselves through the paces and getting to a right result. We will find out soon enough what their verdict is. I won't be able to help myself either in reading tea leaves tomorrow.
I'm glad you put that in. I was going to say, how can you not? I'm planning every moment. I'm in touch with all kinds of signals when this comes down to race. I'm not even sure where I'm racing to, but I'm racing to something.
My favorite was when the left-wing commentators were trying to analyze the sketch artist sketch of President Trump. That's not actually a real depiction of President Trump's scowl. It's just an artist's rendition. and people were looking for tea leaves about what was in Trump's head based on the sketch. So there's no shortage of hot takes out there. We will know soon enough.
Well, we hope to talk with you again. William, thank you. Thanks very much for your service, too, in the Trump administration, and hope we hook up again at some point.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. William
Trachman, who served in the Trump administration. Yeah, we are all reading the tea leaves, and I'd love to know what you're thinking. Phone lines, 833-482-5337, 833, the number 4, Valdes. Dom Giordano in for Rich Valdes.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdes.
Hey, it's Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight at 833, the number 4, Valdes. Let's go to some callers. Let's go to Paul in Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Paul, thanks for the wait. Go right ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, Dom. You were talking about Byron Donalds and had that interview on there, and looking past the color of his pigment, you never know that guy is brilliant. I mean, he just is. The way
that's why I was trying to go into the background a little bit, because I had read that finance. That's how I got into this and all. And I wanted to sketch him out a little bit in my own mind. I came away much more impressed than when I seen him in other things on paper. Not that I wasn't, but I was really impressed by him.
Yeah, every time I've seen him on stage and he's in front of a microphone, he's actually pretty close to being presidential. Maybe he's, 4 years away with Trump, but whatever. I would like to see him as the vice president.
He's near the top of my list, Paul, without a doubt, and particularly after that. And now that I know him a little bit, we hope to get him back again. So thank you. Thanks for the kind words on that. Yeah, he's near the top of the list. I don't know the vetting. It's hard to know all the stuff they take a look at to make that determination. I'm starting to think Nikki Haley, no shot. I thought there was still some shot there. Autographing the bombs in Israel. Oh, man, that's, way to stay in the headlines. All right, phone lines, 833, the number 4, Valdes, get you on board. Todd Stern's making news tonight, talk show host. I know him. He's a nice enough guy, good guy, but he tweets out that Trump ought to jump on a plane and flee to Florida right now. Go to his headquarters there, and Florida will somehow or another protect him. I'm not seeing this panic that Trump is going to be convicted here. I'm not reading into that at all. I'm still in the camp, clearly, of the hung jury. Now, our last guest, I think, was in that camp, too, and Byron Donalds was. I think Trump is not going to be acquitted. Now, that's the first test of rationality. If you think Trump's going to be acquitted, I will be beyond shocked. He's not going to be found not guilty here. That's not going to happen. But also, it's not a slam dunk that they're just going to roll this out tomorrow. I would be really surprised tomorrow that sometime midday or beyond we have a Trump guilty on some charge here. I don't think that's going to happen. And the longer it goes on, the more we think there's some degree of conflict there. If it's more than one, and that's the unknowable, I think the odds indicate there's at least one here, given how flimsy this case was. This could go on for a while then, because they're going to move heaven and earth to try to break those one or two people. But in the end, I'm still sticking with hung jury. Don't get you, but starting this stuff of fleeing New York, this is ridiculous. Let's not go there. All right, jump on board. Take your calls at 833-4VALDES.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdes.
With Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight. So we heard from Byron Donalds, great interview about his view of what's happening here, and from an attorney, Trachman, about what to watch for with the jury here. And today, where I am in Philadelphia, both Vice President Harris and President Biden were at this rally. Here's a little bit, this will be cut 13, of Biden rudely telling the supporters to sit down. It was amazing.
It's great to be with you, Gov. Civil rights and community leaders from all across the country. Folks, if anyone wonders whether their vote matters, remember this. Because Black America voted in 2020, please have a seat if you can. Have a seat. Because Black Americans voted, Kamala and I are President and Vice President of the United States because of you. That's not hyperbole.
All right. So there was a lot of this today, even worse with black entrepreneurs at a building nearby Girard College. Let's face it, the three things they're going to talk about are race, democracy, Trump is a dictator, and, of course, abortion. That's where we're going to end up after this. But in my mind, this is one of the biggest moment in the campaign up until now. Because no one, A, knows what's going to happen with this jury, but B, no one knows, well, if Trump gets a hung jury and comes out of this, I know there is going to be an uptick here, that he went through the fire. He's not convicted of anything. You can say whatever you want with a hung jury and everything that went into this, and it's going to be a net plus for him. If he's convicted, even if it's on the most minor thing, if they can stretch it to say it's a felony in some way, shape, or form, then that is a mixed thing, because Democrats will run on that forever. And the appeal is to suburban voters who like the Trump policy, see how incompetent Biden is, but they don't like the Trump personality. We've been through this before. How does one person break through with African Americans and Latinos and yet has trouble with the Republican base in the suburb? That would be President Trump. So these next 48 to 72 hours are going to be a big determinant on where the momentum is in this race. And anything can happen. All kinds of things can happen. But at this point in time, this will be a huge development. And again, I can't wait to have this behind us, to see this move forward. All I can say is I agree with Jonathan Turley at the end of this hour that what he said today, this indicates at least preliminary conflict going on here in the jury room. Conflict is good. That means there are people questioning this. Exactly what is the crime? How in the world are they going to catalog this where people are going to say 4 over here and 4 over here and yet we're unanimous? That doesn't seem to be very workable. All right, it's Dom Giordano, thrilled to be sitting in for Rich Valdes right here on America at Night.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Hey, Rich has the night off. Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia, pinch hitting for Rich, and one of my all-time favorite over decades of talk radio guests. You just can't create this guy and imagine, where the heck did Scott Presler come from? Well, I first heard of Scott Presler with these giant cleanup campaigns in blue cities, Baltimore, Philadelphia. You know how filthy Philadelphia is to come and clean that up, to rouse people to do that in their neighborhoods? And then we started to see Scott Presler as this activist, both registering people to vote in a unique way, allowing, if you're in a state and you go, Dom, look, there's only 6 swing states. Sadly, that's the truth. Elections used to be duked out in 40 or so states. What stake do I have in this? What can I do other than contribute? Scott's going to tell you what you can do. And it's a genius operation that he has going on here, and an inspirational one. And we're going to tell you about Bucks County, which is the ultimate swing district just outside of Philadelphia, and what Scott has done there incrementally to change from blue to red. And if it flips red, it rouses people. The symbolism of this, that it tells them good things are happening if you are a Trump supporter. So without further ado, let's bring in Scott Presler. Scott, thanks for joining us. I'm not sure if you're a night owl or not. You don't seem to sleep too much, so I thought you might be.
You know, even if someone offers me coffee at 11 o'clock, I'm still saying yes. So
okay.
It was a pleasure to be with you earlier today, and I'm glad to be on Rich Valdes' show with you tonight. Thank you.
Well, Scott, where did Scott Presler come from? What was the motivation? How many years? The cleanups were the start, and is that what inspired you then to move into the voting realm?
Well, see, the cleanups actually weren't my start. That's really just, I guess, where people had an introduction to who I am. But my first ever job was actually electing Governor Greg Abbott in the great state of Texas. I got my start in Galveston. And that's where I learned how to do voter registration, community organizing, door knocking, all the things that are important to actually electing people into office. And so after electing Greg Abbott, I was like, this is what I want to do. I love politics. I love making a difference. And so, you know, Justice Scalia, he passed away, and I knew the White House was so important, because whoever was elected in 2016 would ultimately determine the ideology of the Supreme Court of the United States. And so I spent 2 years of my life helping to defeat Hillary Clinton and electing President Trump. And that's really where the cleanups came in, because President Trump used his platform retweeting some videos that Kim Klacik had put out there. And by the way, congratulations to Kim Klacik on winning her Republican primary in Maryland, where she hopes to become a member of Congress this November. And President Trump called out the city of Baltimore. You know, this is a city that has been controlled by Democrats for decades. And we'll just say that the city needs more love and attention. And I'm the guy that said, okay, we're going to do a cleanup. So on a Monday, we got 200 volunteers, and we picked up 12 tons of trash in 12 hours in one single day. Now, that moment, it changed my life. And that's really where all of a sudden, you know, I reached the national stage. And I had the opportunity, thankfully, to go on with Laura Ingraham, and I went on with Tucker Carlson and Shannon Bream. And people were finally taking seriously some of my community organizing efforts. And I thought to myself, this is really why I'm a Republican at heart, because I don't believe in big government. Big government, with all of the money in the world, has failed us. And I thought, why don't we come together in an act of love, an act of community, and do it ourselves?
Yeah, you are a very disarming presence, somebody said in Philadelphia today when you were on. So, Scott, one of the things you are, there are a couple things tonight that people can take away looking to do something. You are an incrementalist, and due to your technological advancements here, too, you've been able to organize people across the country to impact swing states. But I wanted to start with something that I think just inspires me. Bucks County, when you started in Bucks County, just outside Philadelphia, ultimate swing state, still has a Republican congressman, but in the last couple of elections, it can go either way. It's close, it's big, it's influential. When you started on this, targeting this, I think Democrats had about a 9,000 plus voter edge there on paper registration. Now we're down. Each week you chronicle this to about 1,222. And the way it's going, that could flip, say, over the summertime. Why zone in so much on doing something like that?
Well, let's make this relatable to the viewer at home. When you think of counties that are going to help win the election this November for President Trump, you think of Maricopa County in Arizona. You think of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. You think of Cobb in Georgia. These are all influential counties that will determine who actually wins those states and therefore the White House, right? And so when you think of Pennsylvania, normally people think of Philly and Allegheny, which is normal. You think of Philly and Pittsburgh. But I want to bring people's attention to Bucks County. So Bucks County is a collar county right there in southeast Pennsylvania, just outside of Philly. Now, in 2016, Hillary Clinton won that county, Bucks, by a percentage point. And in 2020, and I use this word loosely, Joe Biden won Bucks County by a couple percentage points. Where I'm going with this is the ultimate swing county that will determine who wins Pennsylvania in part. Now, I've been working on this county actually longer than 2 years. It's more like 5 or 6. But 2 years ago, you're correct, Dom, that there were 9,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. As of yesterday, there are only 1,222. So to anybody looking at this that understands data, that understands wave elections, I'm here to tell you that the momentum is with Republicans, is with Donald Trump. And if we are able to swing this county, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, from blue to red over the summer, I promise you it's going to make nationwide news. And you're going to see dollars and donors flow into Pennsylvania. And that's why I've been so neurotically and in a crazy manner focusing on Bucks County, because I know it can have national and therefore global implications.
All right, Scott, if you can hang on for a minute, coming up with Scott Presler. If you're not in a swing state, the Big Six, I don't think North Carolina, Trump's going to win North Carolina. I mean, I don't even see that as a given. What do you do if you're out there, say, in Illinois? Well, we'll tell you coming up with Scott Presler. We'll tell you how to access what he's doing, and we'll get his take on mail-in balloting, because I haven't talked about this yet. The first time I've been on Rich's show, that in Philadelphia, my listeners are all on board of mail-in balloting. You can't win if you don't play. So more with Scott Presler coming up on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. This is America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Dom Giordano pinch hitting for Rich. Scott Presler, activist extraordinaire with us about the big election coming up. So, Scott, recently you were in Chicago, I think it was Chicago, and you honored, you shouted out on Twitter, and we'll tell people where to follow you. You got quite a Twitter following, who had sent postcards to people in swing states, I think 780, something like that. People are hungry in the 45 states or 44 states where they're not really in on the action and they know it. So what are you telling them they can be doing?
Thank you. So, yeah, I did just go to Illinois, and in part, I know some people probably were questioning why. And it's because the Black community there is seeing that illegal immigrants are being prioritized over Black American lives. And I think the Republican Party needs to do a better job of, when people are asking for us to come, guys, we need to show up. You cannot receive a vote if you do not ask for it. And so I went to Geneva. I went to the DuPage County Jail. I went to Western Chicago. I went to Black-owned businesses and shook hands and asked for votes. Now, if you are living in a blue state, quote unquote, and you want to do more, or if you're living in a red state, like Eric in Alabama that sent me over 100 Trump flags that said, Scott, I'm not going to use these in Alabama, get them out in Pennsylvania. If you're in either a really red state or really blue state, but you want to make an actual difference, you want to make sure that we're flipping states from blue to red, then please, you can download my application, which is called Early Vote, VOTE Action. It's available both on iPhone and Android. And you, from the comfort of your home, will be able to either write postcards or send text messages or make phone calls into Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. You, from the comfort of your home, can help make sure that we're electing President Donald Trump this November. And again, it's by downloading my free application, my organization, Early Vote Action.
And Scott, where do we follow you on Twitter?
You can slide into my DMs in the most wholesome of manner on my X account, which is at Scott Presler, SCOTTPRES1SLER. And I do my own social media. So if you get a message from me, it's actually me. And I would love to work with all of y'all. And just want to say thank you to Rich Valdes for having me on his show through Dom. And Dom, thank you for always having me on your show.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad to have the platform here. And Scott, mail-in balloting, listeners in Philadelphia, and I'm going to ask that next with Rich's audience, are on board with this. They realize you give countless examples. I try to mirror that from you, that if we don't do this, you're not going to win in these swing states or in most states.
Listen, 2022, the machines went down in Arizona on Election Day. It snowed in Nevada on Election Day. We ran out of paper ballots in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania on Election Day. Guys, this election is too important. There are too many things going on. I don't want someone to end up in a car accident, God forbid, and then they can't vote because they can't get up out of bed and they don't have a mail-in ballot. I don't want somebody to have to leave to, make bread for their family and go to another state and they won't be able to vote. I don't want a truck driver that's hauling rigs for us on Election Day not to be able to vote because he's serving us. We need to have a plan B. I need everyone to request a mail-in ballot. And if worse comes to worse and you want to bring your mail-in ballot in person on Election Day and spoil it, that's an option. But we must have a plan B. This election is too important to have the Democrats vote for 50 days in Pennsylvania, while we as Republicans are only going to vote for 13 hours. It is not a level playing field, guys, to allow the Democrats a 49-day head start and us only vote for 13 hours. So please, I want you to check your voter registration status. Make sure you're registered to vote at your current address. Make sure that you're registered with a political party if you're in a closed primary state like Florida, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada. And please make a plan that if you are not going to vote in person on Election Day on Tuesday, November 5th, that you look at early voting options for members of our military or truck drivers or police officers, or request a mail-in ballot. This election is too important to miss.
Absolutely. Scott, thank you so much. Continued success, and we'll catch up very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, there is Scott Presler. That is one of a kind. I'd love to get your reaction, and particularly if you're not in a swing state, you're in a very blue, very red, you know the drill. This guy is just one of a kind, what he's accomplishing. Just inspirational. All right, so it is easy to get in. 833, the number 4, Valdes. And what Scott and I just said about mail-in balloting, I'm not sure. I haven't heard Rich on it. All I can say is in Philadelphia, my show, people have bought into this reluctantly, but they realize how many examples can we give you of what's going to happen as Scott Presler just said, you have 13 hours to vote in Pennsylvania. They had 49 days extra to vote. Mail-in balloting, early balloting. President Trump has said it vaguely on Truth Social once. He needs to say it more directly on this once this trial nonsense is over. This is what you have to do to win, and we have to be better about it. We don't have to beat the other side on this. We just have to be competitive in these swing states, and it's going to make all the difference. And I know all the arguments. We've been through this before. This is the way to go. This is the only way to go. If not, you are really, really just rolling the dice. You are giving an advantage that's huge. Also, one other quick thing. We had Byron Donalds on. First time I've interviewed him. And, once you're in the ring with someone, you get a better sense. A congressman from Florida. And I was even more impressed than I was going into the interview with him. Hearing his background, how direct he was, how unscripted he was. And he would be a really good fit with President Trump. I know he's in Florida. I know all that. That doesn't matter. He would be a tremendous fit. Who is it you're still looking at as VP? If you heard him tonight on Rich's show with me, you got to say this guy is really a contender. I mean, I thought for a while, Trump's still doing a calculus. He would put up with Nikki Haley if he had to. Thank God Kristi Noem didn't get this nod. You can imagine the debacle it would have been after the book. But there are still 4 or 5 people, and Trump is such a wild card, it's a little bit hard to tell which way he's leaning, and that could be, his mind's got to be tied into this. Get beyond this, and then we'll get into the mechanism of all this other stuff. Probably going to announce it at the convention. All right, love to get you on board, though. A lot on the table here. 833-482-5337, you get in. 833, the number 4, Valdes for Rich. Love to hear from you where we are with the trial. The good news tonight, Jonathan Turley making a great point. The jurors have asked a couple of times for the jury instructions again, indicating, at least initially, there is some degree of conflict in the jury room. Now, tomorrow is a pivotal day. If they come back tomorrow, then even I'm going to say, yeah, it's going to be a conviction. But if you get past tomorrow and we get into Friday, you are starting to get into the territory of a hung jury. Might be indicative. There are a couple of people at least who are not going to go for this. Then you're going to see the judge move in. Then you're going to see the pressure. And that would take us through the weekend potentially. But tomorrow is pivotal. I don't see an acquittal. Hung jury is the way here, and that would be enough. That would be more than enough. 833-482-5337. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdes.
There's more news in your commentary, in your analysis, than there is on the news network.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Yeah, I would agree with that on Rich's show every night. Dom Giordano, happy to be pinch hitting tonight. You heard Scott Presler with me. This guy's on fire, the stuff that he's engaged in and the results that he gets. Try to get him to come to a place near you. And he is targeting people Republicans didn't. I'm having him to Wildwood, New Jersey for Dom Giordano Day in June, if you happen to be anywhere near there. And there's a big country music festival, 40,000 people. He sets up shop, and he's off to the races. And it's amazing how many people are unregistered or in places where they want to do something and they don't know what to do. Imagine a woman, 780 postcards, contacting people directly through his technology, encouraging them on this as a reminder. Just remarkable stuff. All right, let's go to some callers here. Let's go to Jorge in Minneapolis here on the Rich Valdes Show. He's listening online. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for taking my call, Tom. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm really sick of this whole trial. What I'm really sick of is Trump and MAGA media constantly lying about the case. I got 4 blatant examples I'd like to throw past you,
Sure.
but you're probably cutting me off because you don't want to discuss them. The first one is Trump said today that there were many witnesses they wanted to call, but they weren't allowed to.
Okay, that's not true. Let's check that one. That's true. That's a misstatement by Trump. Yes.
Right. Oh, it's a misstatement. Gotcha.
Well, he's wrong. I don't know what way you want to say it. It's not correct. Yes.
Okay. No, that's okay. Good. A lot of hosts would argue it. He couldn't testify due to the gag order.
That's not true.
Okay.
But I would ask you, what's that in a criminal case, what would happen here too? Is it not a fair point that Stormy Daniels was an example of how far-ranging this judge would allow this to go? It wouldn't have centered in on the back and forth with Cohen. Anything might have been fair game here. And politically, if you're running for president, is that a wise decision to make to testify in this?
That's a different discussion, but he said he wasn't allowed to testify.
Well, and I just agreed he could have testified, yes.
Right. And he said that multiple times, by the way. It's not like he mistakenly said it once. Another was that just in the past day or two, the jury doesn't need to be unanimous to get a conviction. A completely false lie.
That's not false. No. Let's put that in now. Maybe Trump didn't put it in enough context. That could be a fair point. But do you think it's sound legally? I've never seen anything like this, where the judges said this, can go 4, 4, and 4 on the 3 apparent underlying crimes here, and yet be a unanimous verdict. It can go with any one of those. Does that make legal sense? I've never seen that before. I don't practice law, but I went to law school.
I don't practice law either, but let me explain, because I've been looking into this.
Yeah.
There's 3 components to this case. Okay, there's 3 components. The first 2 components, they have to have a unanimous decision. Okay, if they don't get a unanimous decision on the first 2 components, the third component is a moot point. But if they get a unanimous decision on components 1 and 2, the third component does not need to be unanimous. Nonetheless, MAGA media is running all over the place going, it doesn't need to be unanimous. Who ever heard of such a thing? I have
not heard of this notion that you can have 4, 4, and 4 on this. All right, thank you. Thanks very much for the call. Now, that is a notion I haven't seen before. So, look, I wouldn't misrepresent it. And you heard, I agree. But one note on the Trump issue here, he could have testified, but on the gag order. The gag order was way out of line. If Trump threatens or appears to suggest a threat toward a juror, or something like that. But this judge and his daughter is just grounds for recusal here. And gagging him in this, or threatening to gag him or put him in jail, was way over the line. There has to be more space in a presidential race like this. So, again, if you want to go after Trump and circumscribe him into, if you say anything about jurors or people in the court, other than publicly the judge, the daughter's connection to that, you're gagged. Notice in the document case, the judge there has rejected gagging President Trump around Jack Smith. This is serious business when you have a presidential candidate who can't campaign and essentially has miraculously produced big events in the New York area. That's a lot. But the gag order stuff was over the top. And I'm not going to be, I don't know how Jorge gets this, who he listens to and whatever. I'm not going to defend all that. I'm going to tell you when I think these were misstatements. They were not factual there. A couple of the things he mentioned with President Trump. Yeah, that's true. But let's look at what's going on here. The flimsiness of this and the people testifying. And it is true that we can have 4, 4, 4 on, is it falsifying business records? Is it tax evasion? Is it anything else that you want? That is unprecedented, at least in the cases that I've seen. Let's go to Wayne in Sandpoint, Idaho, KBFI. Hey, Wayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dom. I appreciate this. And I understand why Rich tapped you in on this because of your ability to drill down on these technical issues because of your law background. And you bring an awful lot of insight to this to us laymen who are out here trying to break this down because this is very complicated.
It is. And it's complicated and it's unprecedented in this unlawful conduct part of it. And as I said, the judge instructing today, these jurors that are being earnest in this, Wayne, how are they going to say it's unanimous if people are saying there's a different underlying crime here? That just doesn't fly. You would think they have to agree unanimously on one crime in order to get to the payoff and get to the conviction.
Oh, I can't understand how there isn't going to be at least one or two standouts on this who say this just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. There's no coherent value to any of these arguments. So if anything, you're right. This has got to be a hung jury. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And anything less than that, I just think it's travesty that we are witnessing like a train wreck right before our very eyes.
Thank you, Wayne. Thanks for the kind words, too. Thank you very much. Yeah, it is kind of complicated. There are two lawyers on the jury. They're corporate. Who knows, though, the pressure they're under. They're in Manhattan. But I was glad that at least today there were several reports that the jurors were taking careful notes during the reading of the jury instructions. And for the life of me, I don't know how in a state like New York, and there's several states like this, I have never served on a jury. The last time I was knocked off by the defense attorney, the prosecutor, and the judge. It was quite the spectacle. So given what I do, given the law school background, given cops in the family, given a couple of other factors in the family, I don't get to serve on a jury. And I would have liked to. I had the ability to do it at the time. So having these two attorneys there is going to be interesting to see that dynamic. Do they help to explain this stuff? Do they take charge? Or are they going to low-key it? Because they have to go back to corporate law practice. And if they felt that Trump, the burden was not met, that might be problematic. All right, love to talk with you. 833, the number 4, Valdes.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdes.
All right, Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich. And I just saw this from Alan Dershowitz, who I routinely have on in Philadelphia. Brilliant guy. He's not a Trump voter. He's just a constitutionalist in his own way, in his own brilliant way. He said tonight on national TV, he can see a scenario, it's rare, but it can happen, where Judge Marchand, now follow this with Dershowitz, this is really serious stuff. If it comes down to one juror, and that juror, it's 11-1, and the judge believes the 11 are to find Trump guilty, one juror holding out, and the judge is going to ask them, well, is he negotiating? And they say, no, he's refusing. He's sitting there with his arms folded saying, guy's innocent. Sorry, guy's innocent. I'm not going to listen to you. The guy's innocent. There's no case here. The guy's innocent, Dershowitz said. If I were on the jury, that's what I'd be doing. Then the judge has the power, rarely exercised. He has the power. I've seen it done to say, well, if this juror won't deliberate, then he's violating his oath. I'm going to tag in one of the alternate jurors for that juror. And they immediately come back with a 12-0 verdict of conviction. Well, if that comes out, even Judge Marchand, as bad as this has been, if that comes out, you are asking for repercussions that would be unbelievable. But remember, the goal here is not to win on appeal. It's not to care if people think this has the appearance of fairness, prosecution, not persecution. It's about getting that tag on Trump politically, not even imprisoning him or keeping him off the camp or whatever. It's about Biden coming on from the White House saying, I'm at the White House. I'm not doing this politically. That's why I'm at the White House. And I'm running against a criminal, against a man who's been convicted of a felony in a court in the greatest country in the world, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I think Dershowitz bringing this up is interesting. This is how wild it could get. If that happens and there's not a groundswell for Trump, the only other thing is, it gets people crazy. So I don't even want to imagine this. But Merchan is in there because he's going to do everything he can. That's why I've been saying these 2 nights I'm in for Rich and on my own show, I'm praying it's more than one person. If there are 2 people holding out on this and saying no, even better 3, but if it's 2, there's comfort, there's a back and forth. It would be impossible to take out 2 jurors. You just couldn't do it. One person, though, I could see some speculation here that, yeah, this judge might say, hey, violating the oath, bring the person in. I want you to negotiate. And the juror says, he's innocent. I tell you, that's my position. I've listened to everything. There's nothing more I can hear to change or do that here. You could do this for days. You can have some judges say, I had a situation, the one jury I got bounced from, where the question in Philadelphia was on the sheet you're given as a juror to give your opinion, would you give more weight to a police officer than average? And I said yes. And the reason was they have to answer to someone. They've been vetted more than the average citizen. So they have more guardrails on something. And we were asked this before I went before the judge. The judge said, well, you can't answer that way. And I said, honestly, that was the question. I answered it honestly. I'm not changing my answer. That's when all hell broke loose. They don't like this. I was getting kind of worried on it, but I stuck to it. You don't want to be held in contempt and thrown into a dank jail cell in Philadelphia. But imagine a judge, according to Alan Dershowitz, deciding this is violation of the oath of a juror if you don't continue to negotiate, whatever that means. So if you hold out, you have to be subtle about it, not someone who's just said, hey, I've arrived at my conclusion here. I've looked at everything, no matter how many days or whatever we do. I just want you to know that's where I am. I have reasonable doubt. You cannot bring that back from reasonable doubt. Wow. The things that are going to, remember the Allen charge, too. We talked about that last night, where Merchan is going to charge those that are in the minority opinion, which will be those that are pro-Trump didn't do this, reasonable doubt. The majority opinion, whatever the number is out of 12, 8, 4, 9, 3, something like that, are going to say guilty. You got to face that. That's where this is headed for a lot of reasons. The judge then will call them in and tell them they have to negotiate more intensely with the majority here. The pressure will be unrelenting. All right, final calls of this hour coming up. Here's how you get in. 833, the number 4, Valdes. 833, the number 4, Valdes.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
Yeah, that's what you should do right now with Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich. Ken in Lansing, Michigan on WILS. Hey, Ken, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dom, great job of filling in for Rich. You know, when Hillary Clinton smashed her server with a hammer, she gave us all the excuse that she didn't want nobody to see Chelsea's wedding plans. Joe Biden, as a vice president, had a garage full of classified stuff. And
let me stop you there, and Ken, even more important with that He, in work, and we know this from that thing that we can't hear the tape of, he worked with somebody that made him a lot of money, the ghostwriter, and that guy got to see the classified documents. That's the smoking gun.
Exactly, Dom. And hey, get this. I listen to as much conservative and people who I believe are telling the truth, the Riches and the Mark Levins, them kind of people, Ben Shapiro. But they're coming up with a little bit of a theory. The reason why the Dems want to have a debate in June is because they know how bad Biden is going to fail at this. And I'm hearing that they might be replacing him with Here Whitmer from the great state of Michigan as the presidential candidate.
Oh, my God, please. You guys keep her in Michigan. Come on. I know you want to get rid of her, Ken, so you're putting that out there that we have to deal with her nationally, right?
What I'm hearing, Dom, is she is already, nobody in Michigan knows this that I've talked to. I'm hearing that in the national ads in other states for the last year, she's been airing ads about presidential stuff.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Thank you, Ken, very much. Well, look, I don't think Joe Biden's going anywhere. You got to understand, Dr. Jill Biden wants to be here. You know who else wants Biden to remain there? All these people around him that are flexing their power day to day that they wouldn't have with a president that was on top of things. With a president whose schedule tomorrow is just a return to Rehoboth, and that's it, in the middle of all this. Now, they want this because day to day, there are several people that have inordinate power that they wouldn't have under a Trump or an Obama, under a normal presidency. They want him in there. Apparently, they're going to nominate him digitally or online before the convention, then do it again. It had something to do with Ohio to be on the ballot. I am still in the camp. I know it's more exciting to talk conspiracy and to say, oh, Whitmer, oh, my God. The only one I could see having the heft to take out Biden would be Michelle Obama. And even then, I think Dr. Jill Biden, these other power brokers, and Biden himself, they're not going to go. They're not going to go quietly. So there'd have to be a mechanism to get rid of him, and that is messy, and he'll make it messy. Whitmer, oh, my God. Stay in Michigan, please, just from afar, seeing this play out. That's made for talk radio, though, I got to tell you. So thanks for that from Lansing, Michigan. Phone lines are 833, the number 4, Valdes. This story from Alan Dershowitz, I'm going to try to talk with him tomorrow. I might be able to play that tomorrow night, of what he said about Judge Marchand and the power, if you have one holdout, first to work him over, Al in charge, all that stuff, and then to say, okay, you're violating your oath. Are you going to stop crossing your arms and negotiate on this? No, I've already told you. I've studied this, and I have the constitutional right to say, no, I'm not going to do any more of this. That would be the right of the juror. What would the judge do? You're out. Tag him out. Wow. All right, big hour left on tonight's show. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdes on America at Night.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdes, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdes.
Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich, final hour tonight, taking your calls. You may have heard what I said about Alan Dershowitz saying if there's one holdout here in the Trump trial, we could see at some point Judge Marchand exercising his power to tag that person out and put in an alternate jury, 12-0, and away we go. Wow. You know, the repercussions of what goes on in this jury room and who leaks it and how it comes out, both before the final decision, like if this goes to Friday through the weekend, and then when we find out exactly how they parse this, are going to be amazing. And Marshawn has done a lot of stuff that indicates he's in the tank here. That's why he was put in on this, the issue with his daughter. But if he tagged out the juror who said, I honestly, and it's my right, I just can't see it this way. I've been over everything. You can say what you want, but that's the way that I see it. It's going to be ferocious. But if there are two, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. Now, we got that, and you can get in at 833 to number 4, Valdes. Wanted to add one thing, though. Midnight hour is a great time whenever I filled in on this show. And something that I've had a lot of interest in, and I'm kind of the anti-conspiracy guy on this stuff, but I believe all the conspiratorial stuff, I'm talking about, not stuff that we can see and you see what the angle is and what people might do. I'm talking about stuff that's more murky. Started with the Kennedy assassination. It's been fueled by the internet, social media. And yesterday, the final remnant directly connected to this, Elmer Boyd, the last Taoist detective to investigate the JFK assassination, somebody who took Lee Harvey Oswald into custody. He wasn't one of those guys who really slacked off and let Jack Ruby get in there and kill Lee Harvey Oswald. Passed away at the age of 96. Elmer L. Sonny Boyd died in Corsinia, Texas, about 50 miles from Dealey Plaza, where Lee Harvey Oswald shot President Kennedy more than 60 years ago. I've been there, and I believe that. The 6-4 Museum announced in a Facebook post on Tuesday, Elmer was deeply involved in the local Kennedy assassination investigation, searching the Texas School Book Depository for evidence, later leading Lee Harvey Oswald down the hallways of the Dallas Police headquarters, but not when he was shot that day. He was a true Southern gentleman and will be missed. If you ever have a chance and you're in Dallas, you got to go to Dealey Plaza. You got to go to the museum. There is a scale model, huge, almost the entire floor, of all the particulars around the assassination site and off to the hospital. But in addition to that, you can actually see where Lee Harvey Oswald sat. It's in this material that lets you see it, and you're a couple feet away. And the angle and the shot looked to me like Lee Harvey Oswald definitively could have done this. But I wanted to just open this up and find out, how would you characterize yourself? Are you in the camp that, the conspiracy, and I'm not talking again, where we see some evidence of it, like in this trial. That's not conspiratorial, that we plainly see that Judge Marchand is someone who has a vested interest in this. Now, if you start going farther and make all kind of nebulous comments that are not provable, we don't have any evidence, then you're conspiratorial here. You're just running wild. But think of all the conspiracies that are out there. And again, due to the internet, due to social media, the ability to transmit these more than ever, they are endless. And this is the granddaddy of it. And in a way, I don't know how many figures are left that probe this, that were involved in this. It's just a story that passed tonight. This is the last surviving police detective who actually looked into this and actually had in custody Lee Harvey Oswald. Of course, the way this was conducted, a lot of holes in it, but Gerald Posner's book on this, I'm convinced as he is, that Lee Harvey Oswald did this and had the capability to do it. If you go to the museum, you can see that. But just the whole conspiratorial stuff that people carry around with them. Are you in that camp and you say, well, there's a reason for it, or are you in the camp, as I am, that you dispute these things routinely? I mean, we did see, even I have to give a little bit of ground on this, we did see the story at an air show of unidentified flying objects. I'm very reluctant on that stuff. But again, the U.S. government on this, the record is not good with dealing with this and being more transparent with it. And You may remember when Trump was president, he started to make some noise, some moves about releasing this stuff. The Kennedys, what was the thing, 75 years before some sensitive stuff could be released? By the way, too, I'm not a fan of Stephen King, but I have to give him his props. I could go and watch it again right now. The Lee Harvey Oswald film, What If They Were Able to Stop Oswald, 11/22/63. Stephen King is the main force behind it. It's very good, very well done. Particularly if you've looked at it a lot, you have any sense of the whole thing. I think you would enjoy it if you've never seen it. It's available 11/22/63. So I'd love to get you in. What is the conspiracy that you harbor? And maybe you don't even whisper it. Maybe you think it's fine. Some conspiracies are sports related. That you believe the NFL or, you see certain plays and you go, oh, my God. Well, not conspiratorial with sports, but how in the world did this Angel Hernandez get to be an umpire for as long as he was? I think it was close to 30 years. Horrible. One of the most horrible we've ever seen. That's not conspiratorial. I mean, usually there's just incompetency with this. But sports leads to this. Of course, the presidential race due to mail-in balloting the last time and all, that has hopefully been exhausted a little bit. But there's a constant churn out, a constant need for this stuff. And this is a big night. The last connection definitively connected to the investigation of the JFK assassination has passed away at the age of 96 and seemed to be a guy who was doing his job and doing it effectively, unlike some. How could you lead Lee Harvey Oswald out on that dock, the loading dock, in front of hundreds of people, the media and everybody else? You wouldn't get that today. That's the thing that is shocking here. All right, phone lines to get in. Here's how you do it with Dom, sitting in for Rich tonight. 833, the number 4, Valdes, 833-482-5337. So we got the trial. You got this bombshell from Alan Dershowitz talking about if you have one holdout and that person is tired of just going through the motions of negotiating and they see it clearly, haven't met the burden of proof, this judge could tag them out. That's Alan Dershowitz talking about this. And you can tell he just doesn't think this judge, and I know I've interviewed him, he's been in the courtroom, has been appropriate. He's been inappropriate in this. And that's not conspiratorial. It's not murky. This guy has every reason in the world to be leaning toward trying to get a conviction. I mean, I'm not saying that Judge Marchand has just definitively said this is like the old Soviet Union, but it's certainly unbalanced what's happened here, including the jury instructions and including the fact, we went through this earlier, that you could have 4 jurors saying, yeah, it was tax evasion, that's what he did, falsifying business records, another 4 could say, and then the other 4 could say campaign finance violation, and somehow or another, by going with one of those 3, all of them come together unanimously. That just doesn't make any sense. That doesn't happen. But that's what the direction is. That's the headline from today. All right, 833, the number 4, Valdes. Love to get you on board. And hit me on this conspiracy thing. The Kennedy assassination, I don't know how many hundreds of books have been written on it, but this guy passing away is the last link at the age of 96 to the investigation of active people that we know. And I've seen him over the years occasionally. He's one of the guys they interview. But if you have a chance, that museum, I think you could be convinced that Lee Harvey Oswald, when you stand there, had the ability, and he was a marksman, there is no doubt, to engage in this. The rest of it just fuels some of the wildest stuff imaginable. But that's the age that we live in. All right, jump on board. Love to hear from you. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdes.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. for Valdes. That's Valdes with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdes.
It's Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight. Are you a conspiracy monger? This Dallas last remaining person, at least intimately connected to this, passing away. I'm sure there'll be a spasm of books or something written about this guy to try to one more time jump on this. It's 833, the number for Valdes. And how about this shocker from Alan Dershowitz tonight? You know, there's always a possibility this judge could tag out a juror saying that juror is not fulfilling his oath. I'm tagging in the alternate, 12-0, bang the gavel down. The tell is going to be this. If this goes to Friday, all right, then we're getting into the zone. You're starting to hear rumors of hung jury, or that's developing. If it goes past Friday, or even sometime on Friday, I think Marchand's going to intervene, not so much with tagging out the juror. But I don't see this going on for weeks or anything. It's too excruciating. These people have been through too much. Two of them are lawyers, have to get back. I don't see that happening. But all the elements are there for a hung jury, except for the judge, and except the pressure and what might happen here. Because he knows this is about politics. It's not about putting Trump in jail or anything like that. It's simply about taking Trump out of the presidential race or wounding him by saying he's a convicted felon. That's what they want. That's what they want out of all this. All right, let's go to Bucky in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania online. Hey, Bucky, welcome in. Okay, Ray in Bryan, Texas on WTAW. Hi, Brian.
Morning, Dom.
I'm sorry. Hey, Ray. I'm sorry. You got a first name of a town. I don't see that. Sorry, Ray. Go right ahead.
No, I'm in Bryan, Texas. Sir,
yes.
I've got two quick questions. Okay, on this income tax deal, why doesn't the president take himself and his expert lawyers and all their tax professionals and go to the IRS and ask the IRS, did the president falsify his papers or did he not? And secondly, why don't they take Stormy and President Trump and subject them to a truth verification test? And what do you think about that? You think that could possibly happen? Would that bear the truth out?
You mean what? Sodium pentothal? Give them truth serum?
No. I'm a lie detector test.
Yeah, the lie detector, unreliable. I don't think it's seen this. Back to your other point. The Trump people wanted to bring in an expert because the federal election people did not see this as a campaign violation. The judge ruled you can call him. He can only give you the history of federal finance, but he cannot, as an expert witness, say this would not have been a violation. And that right there, I think, showed the bias of this judge. That would have taken away one of these charges. As far as the taxation part of this, I think the only issue there is how do they deal with that if you engage in it? And usually it would be a misdemeanor, almost certainly not a felony. Thank you. Thanks, Ray, very much. The judge would not allow the testimony. He would allow him to testify, but not to anything material than an expert witness where they say, in my opinion, this is not a federal campaign election fraud that went into this at all. Then you would have to have somebody on the state level because that was the other area. So the judge at least specified today, and the big takeaway is it could be 4-4-4 with the 12 jurors. 4 that say tax violation, 4 that say falsifying business records under New York law, and 4 that say this is a campaign finance violation. And somehow or another, that still would be unanimous that Trump did it. That just makes no sense, but that's where we are. And you know it and I know it. This is going to come down to not a careful analysis of reasonable doubt and the elements allegedly of crimes, alleged crimes. It's coming down to a look at the bias here against Trump, how far that goes, and did some people get on a jury that are thinking Trump is being persecuted here and they're going to hold out. And we should know, I know it's excruciating, but I would say by the weekend, you're going to see something more definitive here. But if you're just joining, Alan Dershowitz saying this has gone so far, and I've interviewed him, he's been in that courtroom with this judge, that this Judge Marchand, it's rare, but Dershowitz says he's seen it happen, could tag out a juror who just says, I've seen enough. You know, and after, say, it's 2 or 3 days into this and X number of days of the trial, the juror could have seen enough in good faith. It's not just they're there because of Trump. They could have seen that. They have every right to say that. And they don't have to continue then. That's their verdict. Well, if this guy tags out that juror at that point, wow. Because it will come out. It will come out when he tags in the other juror. Why is that happening? Well, this guy's not fulfilling, this woman, they're not fulfilling their oath as a juror. That's not going to fly. That is going to have major repercussion. Could Marchand do that? I'd put the odds at lower than what Dershowitz is suggesting. I'd put it 25% to 75%. He's got to know this is already shaky. Will that bring people to say, you know what, I don't like this. This is just get Trump. There is no doubt about it if you did something like that. I think they would pay attention. You know, a lot of America is not paying attention to this as we are, sadly. It's all a blur to them. And those that hate Trump, anything possible, yeah, get them. Those that might be vaguely supportive, they may not be paying attention. Then you throw the De Niro circus into this, and God knows whoever else might appear in the next couple of days. It's ridiculous. All right, hit me up, too, on this conspiracy thing. The last remaining person associated with the assassination has passed away. Dom Giordano, sitting in for Rich Valdes on America at Night.
Well, Mr. Valdes, you have one of the greatest shows that radio's ever had.
America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Yeah, carrying the torch tonight for Rich. It's Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia sitting in. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210. Love to have you do that. And again, even late tonight, we see by some of the most brilliant people like Alan Dershowitz, some of the things he's been in the courtroom that could happen here. By the way, one note, when you see all this story with Sam Alito flying that flag, I'm not sure that his wife just ruled the roost here and determined to fly these various flags. The one flag to the heavens, reaching out to the heavens flag, that's being criticized heavily, flew over buildings, government buildings in San Francisco for 60 years until they discovered it. And realizing that Alito did it, they started to take them down today. Can you imagine? They're going after him to recuse himself, and we're seeing Judge Marchand, based upon experts like Dershowitz, who's been in the courtroom and have seen some of the rulings, say, you know, this is the type of judge, the type of guy that might exercise his prerogative here to tag out one juror and put in another. Not Perry Mason time. If that happened, I think there's huge repercussions around that. And then if quickly they suddenly said, 12-0, that's it, Trump's guilty, get out. I think that's going to be very hard for people to accept. So on the scorecard, before we get to the finale here, I'm seeing it 0 chance. I mean 0 that Trump is going to be acquitted here. There is zero. You're going to have people that are not going to budge in this, and this judge is not going to push them to say no matter what, no matter how this turns, there's a rock-solid majority there that will not, because of their own reasons, and maybe they've convinced themselves this is worthy of a criminal decision. And then, is it 1, 2, 3 that are holdouts? That's where we get into the most likely, which is the hung jury. No acquittal. Still don't see the guilty. But if this judge gets involved in tagging out here, we'll know it. And at that moment, people will say this is a new low, but that gives them what they want. They want a political outcome here. Joe Biden was in Philadelphia today, had a chance to observe all this up close. It was ridiculous. The racial pleas that he was making at Girard College to little kids there, how MAGA Republicans don't want you learning black history. It's endless, because I can tell you here in Pennsylvania, particularly in Philadelphia, they're really lagging with African-American voters. They see the trouble. Two things. One, it's very tepid support of Biden, if at all. Two, Trump is breaking through in the way that no Republican has. He is a threat to what's going on here. Finally, we're seeing a Republican who can break through. So that threat has to be stopped. And they realize none of the other cases are going to materialize before election. And after election, all kinds of things can happen where they go away if Trump wins. So this is it. The next 48, 72 hours, I think, are going to go a long way to determining the presidential race. They're not going to lock it in. There's still any number of things that can happen. But this is going to be as significant as anything that we've seen. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of these jurors. You know, what is their life like? What is it like because it will come out if they're one of the holdouts. Do you remember? I saw a great metaphor today. Do you remember the Bartman guy? The guy who was listening to the Cubs game when they almost made it to the World Series in left field, foul pop-up, reaches over. Guy can't catch it. I think it was one of the Alus. And they had to take him out of the stadium because they ended up losing. That guy had to move out of Chicago. That was it. So if you're a juror in this situation, you got to consider all this, particularly if you're the holdout. And I do think there are holdouts at this point, at least on paper. Can they maintain that through this? It's going to be every trick in the book to break the will of. I would be shocked if at this point in time we have a unanimous verdict of guilty. More shocked, impossibly shocked, unanimous version of acquittal. Face it, that's not happening in New York. That's why they're in New York. All right, Jim is in Pittsburgh, though, KDKA. Hey, Jim, welcome in.
John, great job. I remember you filling in for Jim Bohannon. I'm 72 years old. I was going to the University of Pittsburgh in the early 70s. I was going to be a lawyer, actually. I got turned off due to Watergate. All lawyers going to jail. Okay, literally. I took constitutional law classes. I took a federal election class. That's what they got Nixon for. They took Nixon for that. You know why? Nixon deferred money. The 18-minute gap was Nixon saying to Haldeman and Ehrlichman and Dean in the Oval Office when Liddy was going to talk. G. Gordon Liddy broke into the Watergate building to rifle the files through Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked the Pentagon Papers to Seymour Hersh, leaked them to him. Okay, and they tried to discredit him by rifling through the files. I was going to school at the time. So, having said all that, what they got Nixon for was they deferred money from the RNC, Republican National Committee. The RNC, when you get money from RNC, it has to be used for get out the vote, things to that nature. You can't divert it. Well, he said, we can get $100,000 to keep the boys quiet down in jail because there was a guy named Maximum John Sirica. They called him Maximum John for his maximum sentences. That's what one he gave. Well, when Liddy and the three recruits they had from Miami, which were part of the Cuban exiles that were involved with the Cuban Missile Crisis, not the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Bay of Pigs, where they were slaughtered, where they didn't get air cover. They had, I think they had, if I remember correctly, they had $200 and a couple $100 bills and a phone number of a White House lawyer. They did, but they were arrested, and so they wouldn't talk. So maximum John Circus said, okay, we're going to give you the maximum sentence. They're rotting in jail. And there was a famous meeting where the 18-minute gap came about. And it was with H.R. Haldeman. He was the chief of staff.
Right.
John R. Oakland was his assistant.
It was
John
Jim,
Dean.
I got you. You're making a case.
John,
now, what's your point related to this? What are you driving at?
For campaign violations, diverting funds to pay off hush money.
Right.
You can't do that. This was not a campaign violation, not even close.
No, it was not. This is Trump's own money.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's a
any
huge
lawyer
difference.
who says it is,
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. I get your point. Yeah, it's Trump's own money here. And a lot of this happened, the billing and everything else, after the election. And the other point is made ad nauseum. I don't know if they said it bluntly enough. Would America really have voted against Trump in significant enough numbers to lose if this had come out, the argument? I think by that point, people had recognized Trump's background. We still see this with evangelicals today and all the speculation. Are they going to abandon Trump if he's convicted on this? Well, if you think this is a kangaroo court, this is excessive, these are at best misdemeanors, why would you abandon Trump if he's collared with a conviction here? Why? If you feel this is a kangaroo court. I can't explain it, but the psychology of some people will be, I can't be associated with this guy. I don't like it. I know what he is, and now it's official. I can't officially in the suburbs of Philadelphia, for example, be on the record with my kids or anybody else that I voted for a guy like this. Even if you think these are trumped-up charges, pun intended, that still then would automatically mean that. I don't think that's going to happen in great numbers, but all the Biden people want are numbers incrementally in these tough states like Pennsylvania, the toughest of all, I believe, that will turn the tide. That's what they want out of this. It's incremental. It's small. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. Are there enough people that would use this and say, yeah, I see how incompetent, what a wreckage Biden has been, but I can't vote for this guy. I can't vote for Trump. So I'm either not going to vote right in or I'll vote for Biden. All right, more calls coming up. 833, the number 4, Valdes. Tomorrow, a critical day, though. If you hear tomorrow before the Rich Valdes show that the jury has come back in, then I think you got to accept they're coming in with a guilty verdict. But I think what you're going to hear tomorrow are more conflicts, more finer points is what I'm hoping on the so-called elements of this crime. If you hear that, if that starts to leak out, you'll know that because they'll ask the judge for more information. That's indicative that it wasn't just today that they're putting up a front of some degree of conflict on this. There is actual conflict going on. And the more that that becomes apparent, that's a good sign. And then what you're going to see by Friday, I would predict, Judge Marchand is going to issue, if that's going on, an Allen directive from the case we talked about last night, which would put more pressure on the minority, which could be 1, 2, or 3 people, to go over to the majority side. Could he really, if that doesn't work over the weekend, do what Dershowitz says, tag out or threaten to tag out a juror? Even the threat of that, well, I will take you out and I'll put in an alternative juror. If I'm not satisfied, you're, quote, negotiating. Here's what the negotiation would be. Some kind of compromise on some element of this that still would be criminal, but not something that has X number of years going to jail, because it's not about that. It's about getting something in the public mind. This guy's a convicted criminal. That's all that's needed here, and it's a win for them. All righty, 833, the number 4, Valdes. You get in with Dom sitting in for Rich.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S.
Hey, welcome in. Dom Giordano pinch hitting for Rich. Coming back to your calls. I had to tell you about this, though. I saw an article, and maybe tomorrow night I'll work it in somehow or another. Big battle over sunscreen. And people saying, so much misinformation. The American public has got to be brought to bear on this. People are making too many decisions that the sunscreen people don't like. It just gets into the idea of expertise and what they do in Europe, letting more drugs, decision-making go. I mean, there's a place for the FDA, but now sunscreen is the latest fly in the ointment here. All right, but we're talking about some of the developments. The big development today is this judge, 40 minutes of instructions in a low voice, jurors taking notes, but then having to go back and get things again, indicative that they're doing, at least in the beginning, due diligence. Now, is that fake? They want to show the world they're trying here. Well, we'll know. Each day that goes by, the more that it's apparent that there is more diligence involved in this. And I will be very surprised if tomorrow they come back with the decision. I would take, by the time I come on for Rich tomorrow night, that's not going to happen. But if it's Friday, then we're into the twilight zone. The later it goes on Friday, the more this judge is going to intervene. And ultimately, could he intervene in a way that you don't even see in TV dramas of the judge tagging people out? I remember in the Al Capone story, the Kevin Costner story of Chicago, the judge, because of corruption, tags out one jury, entire jury that was wired, and brings in another one. Would Marchand dare do that? Yeah, that's what several people think. All right, let's go to GW in Galesburg, Illinois, WGIL. GW, welcome to the Rich Valdes show, America at Night.
Well, thank you for your welcome. I've got a few things to say, but I just need to qualify it to begin with. I'm a professor of sociology. Of course, my job is to, study behavior and analyze it and predict what's going to happen.
Okay.
But I want to make sure it's clear that this is my opinion, not the institution that I work for. I believe the Democrats cannot lose this situation, and I'll tell you why. They've already kept Trump off the campaign trail. That's a win. If Trump is convicted, that's a win. If Trump is not convicted, it's a hung jury. That's a win because they're going to say, 9 out of 10 or whatever the particular ratio may be was against Trump. If it goes to appeal, they're going to say the appeal courts are, either Republican-based or the Supreme Court is Republican-based. So they really have no way of losing this situation. They've already won, even if Trump is not convicted. I agree with you. There's no way they're going to acquit him. But there might be a hung jury, and I guess that's what most of this nation is hoping for.
All right. Well, thank you, GW. Look, it may shock you, but I don't know about Trump being kept off the campaign trail. Look, when he gets at rallies and all that, he says a little bit too much. In the situations he's been in, it's been brilliant. The union guys in downtown New York, the Wildwood event, vacation for the middle class, Wildwood, that's the preeminent place. And then the one that he should just model, what he did in the South Bronx. I don't think Trump's losing out by not being on the campaign trail with this stuff. I think he's bringing all the attention in the world to Manhattan, to this. And you've seen the surrogates come out. You've seen the debacle of, I think this is a net win-win-win for Trump in this situation. Not a loss. They haven't won on this. And the polling indicates that people are not overwhelmingly paying attention to this. But when they are, this is a campaign. It's a completely different thing. I'm not in the camp that thinks this is a loss because he's not out there campaigning more, given what some of the difficulties would be. And if it's a hung jury, it's a hung jury. They can say whatever they want. All right, final call's coming up. Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdes. Call now, 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdes with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdes.
Dom Giordano pinch hitting for Rich. And finally, we got somebody on the Kennedy assassination, the last remaining vestige. The detective passed away at the age of 96. Carol in Bedford, Indiana. Carol, welcome in.
Thank you. Yes, I'm not normally conspiracist, but after when I watched JFK years ago, I was kind of iffy. But because of everything they've done to Trump and all the lies, I mean, things I never thought I'd hear about in my whole entire life, I think it's very possible that it could have been a government plot to kill Kennedy because of the Vietnam War. And that's because in November of '63, he signed, I can't think the name of the form, for the troops to come back to Vietnam. When Johnson got in, he signed a thing for more troops to be sent to Vietnam.
Yeah, Carol, the only thing I'd say, and I hear you, this is what leads people toward it, but conspiracies unravel. The one with Trump in front of us is not a conspiracy in the classic sense. It's right there. They are doing it. The Kennedy stuff, that would unravel. In other words, there'd be more evidence of it. And I think that Oswald certainly had the ability, the marksmanship, and the line of sight there to engage in it. But I hear what you're saying. When you see government engage in what we're seeing here, you start to think maybe more shadowy things were done.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely insane what is said and what's done, and people saying, no, I didn't say that. And then I hear a voice, their voice on the tape or a recorder that they said what
yes,
they said.
I hear you. Carol, thank you. Thanks very much for chiming in on that. Hey, great to be sitting in tonight on America at Night. Thanks to Alex Hinton and all the other producers that make this show go. My name is Dom Giordano here on America at Night.